the cloud.
Your
Okay.
cell phone is off, right?
Yeah, and we're now recording. I'll flip back to the title slide. Hello, everybody. We'll admit people as they come in. We're recording this session today, so we'll post it, and we will be following up as well with our newsletter, which has the recording in it. We'll begin in just a moment. Okay, Dan, well, why don't we, as people sort of roll in here, why don't we begin? I'm happy to
Okay.
give a brief introduction. So, welcome everyone to our Warning Letter Wednesday webinar. This is a series we've been putting on at Global Key Solutions for the last 8 months now. Our goal with it is to really provide some regulatory data and understanding of industry and the agency perspective to industry. I'm happy to present today with Dan Barreto, a former FDA investigator and who has worked in industry now on inspection preparation activities, remediation activities, and probably the whole gamut in between. So we're pleased to present today specifically around utilizing AI to help do some of this critical work and how we can all benefit from it. Dan, I'll give it back to you if you have anything to add.
Yeah, what I wanted to add is that this morning we really want to talk about also Wikipedia as a tool um, for the industry, because after being exposed to Wikipedia, as long as probably anybody else within the group, yeah, I've come to the conclusion that Wikipedia is definitely the tool that the industry has to consider. And today we will discuss exactly why is it and how is it that Wikipedia could help the industry. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with the audience.
Awesome. Oh, and just some background, Dan, thank you. Keypedia is a virtual AI agent that we have developed that's specifically trained on the FDA's data. Of course, the FDA has developed an internal knowledge base that they use called ELSA AI, and employees, investigators use that. We're working to bring a similar product of the same data, FDA data, and industry regulatory data to industry so that we can also learn from and become as advanced and actually interpret some of the responses and communications. So that's a technology product we're developing at Global Key Solutions. And my background is as an engineer and partner here at Global Key Solutions.
Okay.
So that sort of brings us past our intros, Dan. I think we can dive in. Sort of what we'll be doing today is some case study discussions. Again, I'm happy to sort of give some background on the product and how we're going to be arriving at some of our conclusions and responses within our case studies. So one thing that our agent is able to do is take data. Here you see 2 paragraphs out of a FDA warning letter, but we all know how long these specific documents are and how many there are. And we can actually process this data. So we can process thousands of documents all in one go. We can do this across many different sources, and we can stay constantly updated across over 500,000 profiles. So This lets you basically have a better tab and understanding for some of the activities we all have to do. So rather than monitoring suppliers once or twice a year, you can do it constantly. Same thing with trainings. You can have the most up to date data and citations within a training or a report. So I think that's where I'll sort of turn it over to Dan, someone who's using this and understands that.
So okay, yes. So what I want to
Yeah.
say, let's proceed to the next slide, George. Um, so as I indicated before, Wikipedia is actually coming at a very important time for the industry. In the past and traditionally, we have been very dependent on seniority within the organization to sort of sort out a lot of the things that we have to sort out on a daily basis, sometimes from a strategic, other times from an operational perspective. But most of the time, a lot of stuff that we do in the industry is very tactical. That generation of senior personnel and even consultants, and I have to tell you, even the seniority within the FDA and other um, regulatory agencies, that's changing. So the future is going to demand that we actually resort to tools like Wikipedia, which, in my opinion, is right now the most important tool that the industry could have. So the things that have not changed, George, is that the industry must fulfill, you know, requirements and expectations from the global regulatory agencies. Those requirements continue to increase, continue to be more severe, more complex. So it is important to understand those requirements. And Wikipedia actually, uploads those requirements. So if you want to know what are the latest requirements, you're going to find them also in Wikipedia. So, in addition to that, manufacturing processes that we deal today are very much more complex than what we had in the past. Yeah, I mean, the times when we dealt with tablets and capsules and liquids, those times are over. And even at the sterile level, we were working with small molecules where we did, sterile operations, but now we're working with biological products. We're also working with new technologies that basically require a much better understanding, a much better appreciation for the work that has to be done. And by the way, these manufacturing processes are also more expensive, starting with the materials that are used, the APIs, the actual finished processing. So even in terms of the process of making sure that the yields are the most effective ones, all of that has to be taken into consideration. So the challenges that the regulated industry will have moving forward are really more and more complex than what we had 10 or 15 years ago. So you have to be in a position to make very effective, precise, and expedient decisions. And when it comes to decisions, I mean, this is a factor of skills, qualifications, experience, really been there, done that. And a lot of the times that we're going to have to make those decisions, a lot of them will have to be risk-based decisions. So you might as well should consider seriously, okay, in times when I have the need for some reassurance as to whether or not I'm making the right decision, where do I resort? And Wikipedia is going to be that tool that you could use. And I have to tell you, over the next 5 to 10 years, and this is from my experience, and if the audience in the chat can provide some input on what I'm saying, I think we're going to be challenged over the next 5 to 10 years with the new generation of quality and compliance leaders, not because they're not capable, but because the experience and the expertise is still evolving and developing, and these experts of the present and the future are also going to be expected to make quicker decisions, effective decisions, and decisions for which, they're going to have to take a lot of accountability. So, what we have seen is, like I said at the beginning, we've lost a lot of that expertise within the industry. So a replacement, a substitute has to be made available. And for those of us who have been working with GKS, what we're trying to do is sort of create that tool that in a certain way is going to become the AI-based consultant, the AI-based assistant that the industry can use. So who could benefit? I have to tell you, I think it's everybody. But when you look at the information that we have at Wikipedia, if you're an active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturer, you can actually benefit from the information that is in Wikipedia and then the processing that you could do of that information in Wikipedia. Do you want to know anything about impurities? And what is the FDA's perspective on impurities, or how should I develop an impurity profile? That's then Wikipedia is going to be for you. Clearly, manufacturers, distributors also could benefit from that. And then, of course, if you look at medical devices, we have a lot of combination products that are being generated, and there are a lot of citations in 483s, warning letters, and then obviously in guidance and um, documents, reference documents that are out there. And to wrap it up, basically on this contract testing labs, why not? There's going to be a lot of work in the future that's going to be done by contract testing laboratories. And then the understanding that you could get is how do I, as the site that is contracting somebody to do testing for me, how do I manage them? And then for the contract testing itself, how do I fulfill the expectations that the FDA has on the activities that I do? Consulting organizations, why not? I mean, the truth is that even the consulting organizations are going to go through that evolution in terms of expertise and experience because a lot of consultants from the previous generation are going to go away. And then, of course, clinical manufacturing operations. And I think that's an important sector because this sector also could benefit from making sure that they do all the front work that has to be done to make sure that a commercial product eventually makes to the market. Who can be most suitable? Wikipedia. I'm giving you here a long list of people, functions that could do that. I think that for the most part, I've covered plenty of them. But George, have I left anybody out from here?
Yeah, I would note that because of just the variety of use cases for this type of information, you
Mhm.
do see it used, sort of like for your supplier roles. These can be very relevant activities for saving profiles of firms and facilities. And then even beyond that, we have, you can think about things similar and bordering business development or external facing roles where you have to deal with suppliers, clients, customers. These are types of things where it's also good to do your diligence, do your homework, understand what's going on in industry. Uh, in a way, keeping your finger on the pulse.
And I just want to touch on a couple of these functions that they could make good use. If you're an internal auditor and you are putting together an audit program for the 2026 program, then you might as well go to Wikipedia and figure out, okay, what type of audit do I want to do in 2026? What would be the areas of interest that I want to do? Let me look at the audits, the inspections that FDA has done of my organization, and let me look at that. For senior management, for instance, George, I mean, senior management has a big responsibility for understanding rules and regulations, and sometimes senior management can be, a little bit skeptic about, recommendations that we make from a quality and compliance perspective. So they can also go into Wikipedia and do their own searches. Why not? Nothing keeps a CEO or a global vice president from actually taking a look at what's Wikipedia's perspective on something. And then, of course, even the manufacturing managers, the manufacturing personnel has a high dependencies on quality personnel. But if they have access to Wikipedia, they can also, say, you know what, instead of bothering quality, let me ask this, and then maybe I can have a conversation with quality where I can align with them based on the Wikipedia input that I'm getting. So there's all kinds of uses that can be done for Wikipedia by the different functions. Um, so how can Wikipedia contribute to cost management? And this is important because one of the things that will continue to happen, and from my experience, is that the industry is always looking for ways to cost cutting, cost reduction, cost effectivity. So Wikipedia does a lot of that if you make a good use of Wikipedia. For instance, you're going to have Wikipedia as your instant, immediate, available virtual GMP consultant for almost any question that anybody could have. I'm working on a procedure that I'm trying to develop, and instead of trying to figure out how to do it without, good background, I'm going to go to Wikipedia and say, I'm working on a procedure for kappa, the kappa probe. What are those aspects of kappa that I should take into consideration in putting together my procedure? Just like that, you get a response, and then that's going to work out for you. Now you don't even have to maybe ask an external consultant to write the procedure for you. Developing smart, targeted internal and external audits. Uh, a lot of the audits that I've seen that are done sometimes are not focused on what's really important. And so there's a big expense. And when you look in the end, did I really do an audit that would fulfill the expectation of the company? Most of the time, that doesn't happen. But with Wikipedia, you can do that. Implementation of targeted inspection readiness program. And this is a big gain because now you know exactly, you can anticipate exactly what the FDA is going to be looking at from an inspection perspective. And if you, by the way, and on top of that, if you want to know if an inspector, if you know the name of the inspector that is coming, you can always ask Wikipedia, tell me about this inspector and his or her profile. And this is really very important because you can get it and it's not going to cost you any more than, the price of your subscription with Wikipedia. It's a source of technical support during and after active FD inspection. So let's say you're discussing with an inspector something, and the inspector's telling you something that doesn't seem to make sense, or maybe they're overreaching in terms of the compliance expectation. You can always ask Wikipedia and figure out whether or not Wikipedia can give you some information, some reference that you're going to be able to use. Uh, Responses to 483s. I could not say anything more than to say this is very, very important because the way you respond to the 483, it's going to help you to decide to achieve a non-warning letter. So understanding how other responded, or whether they responded well or whether they responded wrong, it's very important for you to develop your own responses. Um, like I said before, implementing standard operating procedures. This is really very key. If you want to implement systemic solutions, that's really something you can do there. And honestly, what I gave you here, some examples, you can do much more than that. George, any comments from you?
Probably no particular comments. I think, yeah, the importance of these types of platforms is pretty much becoming clear. You don't just need an AI platform, Copilot, GPT. You need both the internal knowledge bases to support them, as well as, you know, true, uh, the true ability to update and maintain those types of knowledge bases, which is a lot of the difficulty. And that's how you capture a lot of this benefit. So I guess I would certainly note that.
Hey, George, one of the experiences that I have had over the last 8 months is through the LinkedIn posts that I'm making on examples of questions that could be asked. And I
Yeah.
see the reaction of, our coworkers and our network, and it just tells me that, the responses that we're getting from Wikipedia are actually resonating with what the industry is expecting Wikipedia to provide. Sources of data for Wikipedia, uh, when you look at the platform, it gets information from warning letters, 483s, inspections, violation codes. It has information specific from companies. FDA personnel, as I said before, we can tell the profile. We are adding EMA records. There's FDA guidance documents. There are detailed observations on CRLs, record summaries, and of course, Wikipedia also works with the internet. George, I think from a technical perspective, what is it that you want to say about this slide that's going to make a big difference for the audience?
Yeah, this is exactly. So I would say A, this is not exhaustive, this list, but B, it's not just about the source and what you're getting, but it's about the quality and what you're taking out of these sources, how you're maintaining and interacting with them. So, for example, if you're looking at a warning letter, it's not just about getting the doc, reading the doc. It's about interpreting the entire timeline from day of inspection to and through. And those are the types of statistics we want to capture and maintain. So I would just note that the source is only one start of the point in time solution. It goes much deeper.
Yeah, and George, people ask about, warning letters from 1998, 99, 2000, all the way back to, the early 2000s. Are you doing an effort to making sure that pretty much almost every warning letter that is out there that's been posted it's on the platform?
Yeah, yeah. Historical data has different benefits than current data, right? So current data gives you investigator profiles, company profiles that are definitely in operation today. Historical data lets you trend things over a longer period of time. It lets you observe if policy changes that were enacted are having a beneficial effect, right? If they're not being cited so frequently or more frequently, things like this. So I would note that yes, it's important. A, we do, and B, it is important to capture, decades of history more than just recent history. Even though recent history is often phenomenal, just for recent point in time case studies.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. Okay, so we have some Wikipedia case studies. I'm not going to bore you with these in a certain way. I just want to show you some examples of some of the case studies that we have presented. And the key about this discussion is that pretty much any question you could have, you should feel free to ask the Wikipedia to get a response from Wikipedia. And by the way that Wikipedia has been developed, every time you ask a question, it's going to tell you also, or it's going to propose a number of follow-up questions that are related to the initial topic that you ask. George, you want to talk a little bit more about that aspect of Wikipedia in terms of how the process works?
Hmm, good point, Dan. I think that yeah, so couple of things, right? So when you think about beginning some research, you come up with questions, right? This is sort of that exploratory phase. What these case studies embody, these documents are sort of what we've done is just taken general questions that one may have both about industry or some sort of beginning aspects of research. And then this lays out those foundations, examples, what you can take away from that. So I guess I would add that, Dan. I mean, maybe I'll turn it back around and reiterate and ask you like how you do find asking, how you're learning how to ask questions. I think something really important is question suggestions. So this takes both the response as well as the original question and works to develop and refine a follow-up question, just like any examination or examiner would, you should continue adding scrutiny until you've hit a level of satisfaction that is as good as possible.
I think my experience, George, has been as follows. Every time I do ask a question, what the process does is first it gives me a very good response, but in a certain way, it also inspires or provokes me to sort of maybe do a little bit more of analysis on my own. And I think this is very important because, as long as, we continue to evolve within the AI world, the responses that we're going to get from AI are going to be, a great baseline for what we want to do. In some cases, gives you every uh, response that you need for a specific question, but sometimes it also forces you to look at your specific situation. Because again, one size doesn't fit all the time. And so what I'm learning is that because of the simplicity in which in the way that the response is provided, it really triggers any user to sort of look at it and say, what else can I do? What else can I? And if you see in my LinkedIn commentaries, I actually add those commentaries. So for instance, there was a question about audit trails, which I discussed yesterday. And a lot of people think that audit trails are about audit trails for every type of audit trail that is generated. The whole idea of audit trails is about human generated data. It's about the actions that humans take to actually change or alter, a specific set of data. So the discussion about audit trails yesterday, I said I put a commentary. Remember, this is not about audit trails that are generated by the computer system. That is really about the qualification of your computer system on how it works. But the audit trail that FDA is interested in, it's around human-based audit, data generation, operators, quality control personnel, etc. So I hope that people can see that, you can generate your pretty much your own case study. You can ask pretty much any question you want to ask. That's the point that I wanted to make here. I want to bypass these. Again, what I wanted to show here is just an example of the questions that were asked and how Wikipedia not only can give you the response, but on the right side, it can also give you the reference to the warning letter. So what I have shared on LinkedIn is just a minimal part of what Wikipedia is capable of providing to the user. George, any comments on that?
Yeah. Actually, I have a couple comments on this one. Pretty much exactly. So the question you have asked here, and then the response is by Wikipedia. On the right, you can sort of see the report in gray from Wikipedia and white you're in summary. So I think it's really helpful to show, you know, even this exact example with US continental marketing, how you can essentially start at a broad level. This is a pretty broad question and start drilling down, understanding exact sort of instances and going from there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, these are like in a certain way questions that we ask about, how FDA reacted to something. But if you wanted to have a more generic question, Wikipedia can also help you with that. So let's say you want to write a new procedure and you don't want to ask the Wikipedia what were the warning letters about procedures regarding kappas. You can ask the question, how do I make a stronger kappa procedure? Can you help me with that? And Wikipedia is going to answer that question as well. Again, these are pretty much the same examples. George, any input on the
I
talks?
guess just as we wrap up here, I use this product for a range of preparation and talks. We've, of course, published research in this space. It's just a demonstration of, another example of the ability for a product like this, sort of what we've used it for, what I use it for. to help educate, train, provide learnings to industry. So that's why the slide is there.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, yeah. Um, so your comments on this one?
Yeah, I guess the reason this is here is really just to, resonate the fact we as industry, we spend a lot of time and effort to essentially comply with FDA standards, everyone, global harmonization. What we need to be aware of is that, with emergence of new technologies and the need for more efficiency, we as operators need to adopt new tools and use new methods to refine what we're doing. That's the point to this demonstration of this sort of product and AI products is that, you know, there are situations and you have to take a risk. You can take a risk-based approach, but there are situations where you can begin today uh, becoming better at what we do. And we want to do that, right? Because overall, we want to have positive interactions with our regulators and with patients. That's why we're all sitting here and doing what we do, is so we can bring new innovation. So that's why I would mention that.
Absolutely. So conclusions and recommendations. Wikipedia is evolving and it's maturing. So as we add more information, and data, and as we add new features into the platform, you're going to see like any other, technology-based product that it's going to continue to evolve. Um, the ability for it to be virtual, an instant GXP consult is really something that cannot be underestimated. Um, Even for somebody with the seniority that I have, I love to use Wikipedia because it really provides me with a lot of refreshment information, and sometimes information that it took me a long time to sort of put together, and within seconds I get it, and then I study it, and then I process, and then I further supplement it. It's a low cost process when you think about how much you would pay for a consultant. If you had to have a consultant on a daily basis, we're talking about millions of dollars, and that's not what Wikipedia is all about. The sources of information are updated pretty much on a daily basis. We're keeping track, and I know that GKS is actually adding, information from other regulatory agencies besides the FDA. George, any comments from you on that one?
I guess not in particular, you know, adding information beyond the FDA is, that global perspective. It's in the name. So we are doing exactly that. I think it would be important to note different agencies are, of course, going to be taking different steps, looking at different things. Uh, no matter how much harmonization is talked about, the uniqueness of each situation is quite deep. And that's why just looking at documentation doesn't tell a full story. Just piecing together from inspection to issuance or, sort of the reasons why something exists doesn't tell the full story anymore. Using AI based products, using Keepedia really assists fill in those gaps. And how do you ensure that accuracy? You cite it, you show the instances, you show what's going on. So I guess that's what I would note. No matter which agency you're looking at, it's so unique. You have to use products like this to supplement
Yeah.
your understanding and interaction.
Yeah. And of course, Wikipedia is supported by GXP experts. So um, the whole idea behind this is not to create a program that is technologically good, but it actually fulfills the needs of the industry. Because for those of us who work with Wikipedia and GKS in the advisory role, we know exactly what the industry needs are. So we are really encouraging and forcing that the Wikipedia tool is designed and implemented in a way that it actually fulfills the industry needs. And learning how to use Wikipedia is just simple, intuitive, and easy. I mean, it doesn't take you there's no manual for it. You just have to go in and ask your questions, and that's how it's going to work. So that's the core of my presentation. George, any?
Yeah, yeah. I think actually, you're even the last part you said. I mean, the goal is a simple, intuitive design. You could even ask it how it works, and it will tell you, right? Sort of thinking about how you can save searches and do the task you want to achieve can be very important. Yeah, I would note all of these things. I think I'm happy to open it up for questions if we all are. We can do them in the chat. I can read them out to you, Dan, or
Sure.
I think people can come off mute. If not, you know, let's do that in the chat and go from there. But
Whichever way is
absolutely.
fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions?
And if there's no questions, Dan, we can note one thing you can ask Wikipedia was on the warning letter of the month. So we'll send out the warning letter of the month for Warning Letter Wednesday and on the meeting recap as a bonus. And yeah, I think that will be a good conclusion. Oh, Zeph has asked a question around how does Wikipedia differ from using other AI chatbots like ChatGPT? Excellent question. Thank you, Zeph. And I think that's a really important note to touch on. What we're building is industry specific, right? So we're building something that we want pharma, device, quality, and regulatory groups that instantly understand and trust far more than you would with ChatGPT. The difference really is accuracy and citability. This is a product that is able to cite and give you the exact documents you need. Ellen asks, can you tell us what has surprised you the most by your search results, Dan?
Uh, I think what has been very inspiring is it's really how precise the responses are, how complete they are. To be very candid with you, I was expecting less than what I'm getting. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that because of the database that we have of information, the platform, the AI agent is able to really do a very thorough research. So for me, that has been the most surprising because I've used ChatGPT and I'm not trying to compete or compare, but because this is like you said, George, an industry focused database, then the responses that you get are much more precise. And of course, that's exactly what we want to do. So it's precision, it's also simplicity, and I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I will stop the recording here, but we can continue.